Look at some of the analysts' reaction this morning. They're all talking about, seeing NIO having a challenge to deliver more vehicles and ramp up production as they go through the year. But when we look at this just past period, this fourth quarter, clearly, they did better on revenue, but across the year, they're still losing a lot of money, $2.9 billion. It's not great, and they've been struggling, which is why they've been trying to raise them.
The electric vehicle industry in China, once hailed as a marvel of state-driven innovation and growth, is now facing a harsh reality. Despite tremendous production output and millions of EVs on the road, most Chinese EV makers are incurring severe financial losses. While their products have found widespread use and technology has advanced rapidly, the profitability needed to sustain this growth has been elusive. The sector is bleeding billions, with only a few companies able to break even, let alone turn a profit.
Until recently, the idea that electric vehicles would make up a significant portion of all cars on our streets was something for the future. Then China came along and thrust the future upon us now.
China's EV market is one of the largest in the world, but the competition is staggering. When the Chinese government implemented policies to promote electrification, the response was overwhelming. Incentivized by generous startup funding and hopes of a fast-expanding market, entrepreneurs and companies flocked to EV production, peaking at more than 500 registered EV startups. Though this number has since decreased, around 90 to 200 firms still produce EVs today, far too many for even the vast Chinese market. While around 11 million EVs are expected to sell in China this year, the sheer number of producers means there isn't enough demand to sustain them all. The excessive supply has left many companies vulnerable, creating what some call a death race, where only the strongest and best capitalized companies will endure.
Truce has failed and the battle has been reignited. This statement could apply to a number of things, but tonight we're talking about electric vehicles and price wars in China. At the center of this is Tesla. Elon Musk has slashed prices again and set the cat among the pigeons.
One of the major catalysts of the financial strain is the intense price war that has gripped the Chinese EV market. Tesla, with its strong financial reserves and scale, initiated this battle by drastically reducing its prices on China-manufactured models. Domestic brands, unwilling to lose their market share, followed suit. While Tesla and larger Chinese companies like BYD can better absorb these losses, smaller firms are struggling to survive. The lowered prices have squeezed profit margins across the board, putting many firms in jeopardy.
Fortunately, it looks like they are done.
Interestingly, this price war hasn't just claimed smaller startups. More established brands like WM Motor and Byton have also disappeared over the past year. Companies are fighting to outlast one another, hoping to wear down competitors until only a handful remain. Yet this is hardly a sustainable business model for the long term. Even large companies can't maintain these deep discounts indefinitely, as profit margins are razor thin. To make matters worse, the strain of competition is pushing out even legacy automakers from Japan and Europe, with companies like Mitsubishi and Honda struggling to stay relevant in the face of these competitive pricing tactics.
Companies making the cars can get a subsidy whenever they sell a car. We're also talking about they're getting cheap land leases from the government, they're getting cheap loans from
The extraordinary growth of China's EV industry is partly due to massive government investment, estimated to exceed $230 billion over the past decade. This support fostered R&D, technology development, and rapid market expansion. However, as government's priorities have shifted, direct funding to individual companies has dwindled, though investment in infrastructure and export support continues. Today, the Chinese government focuses less on financing EV startups directly and more on developing a supportive EV infrastructure. Additionally, consumer incentives have mostly disappeared, replaced by indirect benefits such as tax exemptions.
A lot of people thought Joe Biden wouldn't continue that, but now he has actually gone further. He's doubled down. Actually, he's kind of quadrupled down on Donald Trump. A new 100% tariff. That's on top of the 2.5%. So actually, it's 102.5%.
China's ambition to lead the global EV market has run into significant roadblocks. Domestic sales are robust, but not limitless, and exporting is critical for the industry's long-term viability. However, the most profitable markets, Europe and the United States, have imposed substantial tariffs on Chinese EVs. The US, for example, recently added a 100% tariff on Chinese-manufactured EVs, effectively pricing them out of the market. Europe, too, has adopted protective measures, with the European Union placing a 5-year import duty of up to 36% on Chinese EVs.
The US doing this? Well, partly it's because they're really worried about competition. They're worried about competition from China.
These tariffs are an attempt to safeguard domestic auto industries, but they effectively keep Chinese EVs out of markets where they could make a substantial impact. Major players like BYD are forced to rely almost entirely on the Chinese market, where demand is finite and consumer spending is beginning to wane. With around 95% of their sales still occurring domestically, even the largest companies have limited growth opportunities abroad. The restrictions on exports have stifled China's plans for global EV dominance, further tightening the financial constraints on these manufacturers.
In the competitive world of Chinese electric vehicles,
looking for a spot
that are going further and costing less than ever before, no company makes or sells more than BYD, the Chinese giant taking on.
While many smaller companies face existential threats, even the largest players are feeling financial pressure. BYD, for instance, is one of the few companies making a profit in the sector. Yet even it faced a tough year, needing government support to remain stable amid slowing sales in the first quarter. Other leading companies, including XPeng and Leapmotor, have reported staggering losses. In the second quarter alone, 3 prominent companies, XPeng, NIO, and Leapmotor, reported combined losses exceeding $6 billion.
Revenue there, but losses widening, those R&D marketing costs, as I mentioned, continuing to rise. What's your message for investors who will be keen to see a return on their investment?
Well, I think the message is that the China EV market is growing at a much faster rate.
The rapid early growth of China's EV market may have led to overly optimistic projections. In 2022, the market experienced a 90% growth rate with 5.7 million plug-in vehicles sold. Many companies, along with government planners, expected this rapid expansion to continue. However, growth has slowed, with the market projected to increase by only 22% this year. This slowdown has led to a mismatch between supply and demand. Automakers plan for a demand level that isn't materializing, creating an oversupply issue that further drives prices down. For instance, 3 large companies, BYD, Li Auto, and Huawei's Aito, have planned to increase deliveries by 2.3 million vehicles this year, yet the total market growth is expected to be just 2.1 million units. This discrepancy leaves some companies at risk of having unsold inventory, worsening the financial strain. The cooling market, combined with high competition, makes it increasingly challenging for manufacturers to sustain their operations, let alone grow. For the majority, this isn't just a tough period, but a critical moment where survival is uncertain. With billions in losses and limited prospects for relief, Chinese EV makers are truly bleeding out, facing one of the most turbulent periods in their short yet dramatic history. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and if you want to stay updated for new content, make sure to turn on notifications.